Okay, Brian, I want to just jump in because now we're getting into something for, again, I'm as a listener going, wait a minute. Okay, this is classic. Here's a company that understands modernization, not just in the government sector, but in commercial.
Right.
And the difference between that I've always felt is, you can modernize and transform and ultimately innovate. And this continuous learning cycle, which we'll get to in our next segment about the future and where a rancher is going. I want to come back to some things you said, and for our audience, that this, traditionally, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I write down notes when I'm thinking, Brian just said something.
Yeah.
Look, there's no one solution for everybody. You just highlighted DoD, the energy sector, look, the food and agriculture sector. I know one of the things that ranchers very focused on is this term at the edge.
Right.
And as our government has moved to the cloud, embraced the industrial Internet of Things, putting devices and information closer to the end user in a secure manner, seems to speak to a lot of this Kubernetes value proposition. So for the audience, and please, Brian, put on your professor hat.
Yeah.
The traditional era of apps on physical servers, ultimately moving towards virtualization, VMs on single servers, scalability and security enhancing. Again, this is the transformation, bringing us to the container era. And now we hear this term Kubernetes, which I know has a Greek derivation of being a Greek guy. I'm not 100% what it means, but I like Greek terms. Can you expand a bit on the why orchestration in Kubernetes is really cool and sexy, and why ranchers kind of all in on it?
Sure. So, first to talk about the migration from applications that run on single servers to virtual machines, and then now to containers. So to explain to those that might not be familiar with these technologies, a server is a physical machine. It runs an operating system, and it usually runs a program. And it's usually a fairly boring back-end program that most users of applications don't really care about all that much. And what's happened over the many years, the multiple decades, is that the machines have gotten more and more powerful. There's Moore's Law out there that talks about the processing capability of machines and how it's basically doubled every 18 months for years and years and years. So these machines created by great vendors like HP and Dell and others, these are extraordinarily powerful machines. And what we found is that they're actually too powerful to just host one workload, one application like a database server or a web server or something like that. And so there's a reason that we want to get more out of these machines because they offer that much. And so we went to a world of virtualization in the early 2000s, where we basically took a technology that allowed us to copy operating systems, the whole operating system. So if you're on a Mac or if you're on a Windows box, that whole experience of an operating system got replicated across one physical machine. And that was a way to make those machines much more useful for the power that they had built in them. As we pass through time, the machines continue to get more and more powerful, and we've been able to get more and more sophistication with how we control those processes. No longer, and this is where we enter the world of containers and Kubernetes, no longer do we have to have a full developed copy of an operating system. What we can do is isolate it at the process level. And basically what that means is a thread of memory and computation in a single machine that gets controlled. And that can be copied not only multiple times on the same machine, but it can also be copied across multiple machines that are all interconnected in a cloud. So that's the primer, to go from a single physical machine to something that is living in a cloud, tightly controlled process that can be controlled in terms of life cycle.
Okay, so I'm going to just shout out to you literally, that the reference to plumbing and being foundational, and anybody who understands security stacks, look, folks, if you're hearing this, the ping, the power, and the pipe of a data center that most people never get to set foot in is what keeps things running. And I love that you made that reference. And again, without a strong foundation, you can't enjoy the fruits and labors in a secure manner of what that application at the top of that stack brings. So,
right.
Thank you, Professor Shimkaveg. Let's focus a little bit more and peel back, as I like to say, the Kubernetes and orchestration. What are some of the unique applications that ranchers are excited about currently?
Yeah. So Kubernetes and our implementation of the Rancher Cluster Manager is really important to us. So that allows for operators that are interested in using Kubernetes as a technology that want a partner and a vendor that is intimately connected with those technologies because we author those technologies or many of those technologies. We provide it as a consumable asset for your folks in the data center. We make it easy. First, you have to go and make sure that you have all the functionality. Then you have to make sure that it's reliable, that it works all the time. Then you need to make sure that it's easy to use. And then you need to make sure that it's cost effective and cost efficient. And by approaching it that way, where we make sure that all the capabilities those folks need are in there, then making it reliable so they can be confident in using it in production. And then making it easy to use so that the plumbing isn't a job that they have to break out the wrench and the hacksaw and all the other kind of things and get under the sink to work on. They have a reliable product that provides the capabilities that they need easily and out of the box.
So Kubernetes is kind of like people can utilize a Kubernetes framework at an agency. And then there's differentiating capabilities, having the right people, that it's not like you buy Kubernetes and only Rancher sells it. It's if you adopt this concept around at the edge with Kubernetes, containerization, orchestration solution, Rancher has some really, really, adept and expert folks helping you deploy that foundation, that plumbing, so you could do these wonderful things, as we talked about earlier, at the edge for the warfighter, for the farmer, for the utility operator. Is that fair?
That is fair, yeah. And I think that it's really important to note that we have competitors in the Kubernetes space as well. And those competitors have a selection of capabilities. They have a selection of value propositions that they espouse. We do too. And I feel like our version of Kubernetes is exceptional, not only in the data center, but where we really shine is at the edge. Because we're talking about low power, low footprint, perhaps even low communication environments, where we can provide an environment for mission workloads and mission applications at the edge. That edge could be a sensing device, very, very small footprint, collects some information, maybe does some local processing at the edge before it gets shipped back. Some of our customers, and you can imagine, the Department of Agriculture, the National Geological Survey, and many of those cases out there where you're just sensing raw data and then maybe doing some processing and then shipping it back. You may have another use case at the edge, which is I'm in a battlefield medical tent and I'm providing an IT infrastructure in the field where I need to have some information local. I have some mission applications that are local, but I don't rely upon the connectivity back to a cloud or back to a data center. I need to be able to consume it there. But I need it reliability, because what I don't want to find myself is in the middle of a surgery, in a tent, in a field, relying upon an IT system where I don't have that reliability of the application and I get the blue screen of death. I need reliability. And that's where Kubernetes at the edge helps.
So can I build off what you just said, Brian? Reliability. Folks, think of an environmental impact. And when we see a hurricane coming, or God forbid, a tornado that just can quickly happen, or, I always like to share, especially as we celebrate National Critical Infrastructure Security and Resilience Month. That's November, folks. Cybersecurity was all about being in October. Brian, you're bringing up these sectors that are embracing the edge, that need to have data to make decisions, data-driven decisions, right? To make sure that, our crops are growing. Yes, our war fighter, our folks in theater are protected. We want the creature comforts of data quicker, faster, but we have to ensure that it's secure, that the cloud solution providers that we work with, as well as the Rancher government solution, is one that I can sleep well at night knowing that I can trust the data, that the infrastructure is reliable, but also resilient. So I'm going to emphasize that I know that from your new vector, RKE2, if I may, Longhorn, Harvester. You all have a litany of tools, and folks, we can speak for hours on those, but I appreciated that. Brian, I love that you bring up, and let's focus on that as we move into the, where's Rancher going? What's exciting as we start this new fiscal year in terms of the emphasis on ensuring that very critical infrastructure. Folks, go to dhs.gov, critical infrastructure, and this is what you'll see Brian's been talking about. But the Internet of Things and the industrial Internet of Things and the sensors and the devices and the things that we use on our smartphones that serve up information so quickly, how do you think that's being powered? Most undoubtedly, it's probably got some open source, some DevSecOps work, some agile methodology, and the things that Brian's talking about, hidden in plain view. Comments, Brian, on any of that before we move into the visionary? Where are we going, and why should we be excited about Rancher in fiscal year 25?
No, I think that's a great summary, Pete. I think that meeting customers where their mission is in the context of the challenges that they face is where RGS serves our customers best.
I love that. Mission matters most. Wonderful. No cookie cutter approach to your customers.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, Brian, you're VP of sales, man. I mean, you're in a new fiscal year. You got a team of awesome people. You're out there selling. I like to say you're probably more telling versus selling. And I always say, let's solve problems together versus buy and sell. I worked in government for 25 years. I knew what it was like sitting at a table with the Brians of the world and team. And really, I cared about what are they going to say that gets me excited about the problems that I have. How do you do that? How do you engage in those to build that trust with a potential partner?
I think the first thing that I do is when I'm coaching my team prior to going out into the field, it's let's get ready in two ways. One is to be very credible on our technology. Let's understand what it does and what it doesn't do. Let's understand our value proposition, what we do and what we don't do. And so that's part of the homework, making sure that we're ready to go. And then the other part of the homework is let's get out and understand the customer first. Let's do some homework. Before you make that sales call, before you go and knocking on someone's door and taking their very precious time, let's make sure to the best that we can that we understand what their missions are, what they are challenged with, what their priorities are from the White House on down, and what their local priorities might be that might supplement what is being asked from the top down. As much homework as possible, I think, is really critical. Now, when we have a conversation, I encourage my sales reps to go out there and say, to lead with questions. We don't want to ask naive questions. We don't want to ask questions like indicating that we haven't done any homework. But I think that it's also important to have a beginner's mind, to ask and to probe and to really make sure that the customers feel comfortable that by asking these questions, what we're trying to do is come to a mind share with them about where they really are. What is their job to be done? What are they trying to accomplish? Let's get past the buzzwords. Let's get past the technology bingo. Let's find out what we can do to solve a mission problem. So those are the two things that I coach my folks to get out there before they, when they go and meet their customers.
So again, this wasn't scripted, folks, but I'm writing down. And Brian, you sound like you're the federal person hoping for the same things I did, because what I appreciated you just said is leading with questions, and you didn't say, "I want to know what keeps you up at night."
Yeah.
I want to know, why is the sky falling and where is it? This line you used about doing homework, God bless you. I love giving homework, and I like that you preempt a sales call with understand the agency, its mission. There are over 430 agencies, folks, that are unique. There's not 10, there's not 20, there's not 30. And Brian, you just made that point, and I appreciate that, right? Again, as a former Fed who says, let's do our homework, let's figure out how we can have impact. Maybe not today, maybe next year, but back to my audience and the audience, folks, read the National Cybersecurity Strategy. Read the documents that we referenced earlier today. Read the CISA DHS Open Source Software and Security Roadmap published in 2023. There's a plan the government has and needs companies and expertise like Brian and those at Rancher Government Solutions to please come talk and help us get to where we have a resilient, secure, reliable, critical sector. Okay, Brian, I can talk, as you know, and suck the air out of any room, but I want to use this not quite parting shot. Has there been some element of today, we talk about educate, inform, enlighten, examples of maybe what Rancher's doing today? You referenced a few. Are there some, because I think it's important to celebrate your success.
Yeah.
Are there some that you want to share with the audience as to where you're having some impact today?
Yeah, certainly. I would say that we are seeing a lot of traction, a lot of interest at the edge. It is a natural alignment with our capabilities and a lot of natural alignment with what the missions are, whether they are in the federal civilian sector, whether they're the intel space, or whether they're in the DoD. That natural alignment, that natural product fit is where we're seeing a lot of traction and where we can come with alternatives that the customer hasn't been able to see. And the reason why we're able to offer that is because of that power of the innovation that's happening in the open source communities. These technologies didn't exist. The problems had always existed. We've come to market with a better solution for it. This is what I think is really important to relay to audience and to listeners. open source provides a lot of capability for agencies to meet their mission requirements. And the question is, well, who best to partner with? And I would argue that RGS and other types of vendors that are providing support for open source products are really the go-to way to go, because we edit the source code, we compile the source code, we provide it in stored facilities, we provide a secure supply chain, we provide an attestation as to the ingredients that are in your cake is actually the cake that you are actually eating. Could you imagine the FDA not supervising the ingredients labeling of food that you consume? Of course they're going to do that. Why? Because consumers of food want supply chain security of a meal that they're eating so they know what's in it. And that's what we do.
I like that. And again, for me, it's illustrating, and I'm going to just list a few things here because I thought you just captured that wonderfully. And that is, if we can all just think about when we're at school, how education has changed, distance learning, working remote, our healthcare system, the medical devices that you see in a hospital now that are beeping, and folks, that's all powered by technology. And at the edge could be, that device in this hospital in this state is in a cloud over here that's being managed and, led by some expertise from folks, thousands of miles away. It's pretty exciting. But to trust that information flow in transit and at rest, Rancher clearly locks that down from what I'm hearing. And I encourage folks to meet with Brian, just because I think Brian's one hell of a storyteller. You heard about his journey, and he cares about the mission.
Yes.
And that is what the government preaches, right? Open government principles, participatory, collaborative, and, most importantly, being transparent. Brian, parting shot.
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand that supply chain really matters. When you think of eras gone by, when you think of the integrity of ships or tanks or any other kind of asset that you have, the defense industrial base and the capabilities that made sure that equipment was reliable and operational and ready was highly scrutinized. And coming from the submarine force, every piece and part that went into that submarine had a supply chain map to it. And we knew when we went to sea that we were comfortable in the operation of the ship at test depth, at max speed, in warfighting intense situations, we would be able to execute in that environment. What's shifting today is the most critical asset out there today is information. That information of communication between two soldiers in the field, information between the sources of seismic activity and a data center that's trying to predict any kind of catastrophe that could potentially happen along fault lines. The integrity of the data is so key, and to ensure the reliability of that integrity and the processing of that data and that information is where Rancher fits in. We're the plumbers to ensure that the integrity of your applications and the integrity of the data that you are consuming and making is reliable. And that's where we add value in the chain.
Slam dunk, drop the mic. I loved it. Brian Shimkaveg, Vice President of Sales, Rancher Government. Let me just say this. Thank you for the opportunity to celebrate you. I can tell the passion and see the passion and hear the passion in your voice. Keep doing what you're doing. You're making a difference. You're moving the needle. And I hope we get to talk again soon.
Pete, thanks so much. I really enjoyed it.